I was cracking up as I came up with that. I was like, yes.
Oh my gosh, that was so funny.
Beauty. All right, I am going to hit the go button, so give me like 10 seconds, okay?
All right. I got my hand sanitizer ready.
Perfect.
and, my, and my COVID breathing cloth.
What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Wednesday night live stream. I have the one and only Copegod himself, Mr. Chad Clayton from ReefNutrition. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great considering the current pandemic. Things are actually going okay.
Excellent. Always good to hear. I see you got the mask ready. You got the hand sanitizer. You ready for anything?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to be employed, that's for sure. It's nice to be essential.
Exactly. Hey, you got to keep all these fish and all these little creatures happy and thriving, right?
Absolutely. Yep. And a lot of our business, we sell algae to farmers, people farming shrimp and clams and fish, and those people, are selling a product that feeds humans. So we're part of that chain. We're grouped into the agricultural world right now. So farmers are keep on going. So
that's true. I didn't actually consider that, but yeah, that's true. You do a lot of agriculture type of stuff too, right?
That's most of our business is selling to big
Aquaculture
aquaculture operations all over the world. Yeah, people that are growing food for humans. So yeah, it's really cool.
Nope, very cool. So today I constantly always get questions about, people, is there benefits to feeding Phyto? Is there benefits to, pods? Should you be dosing them, and how to culture them? All these different types of questions. I figured it'd be kind of a good one to dig into a little bit today because you are the master of growing them. And I know just all the markets that you sell them to and how they help it, and, especially for breeding and all these other systems. So I guess the first question, we can actually dig into breeding a little bit, but just for a general reef tank, filter feeders, kind of should most people consider adding phytoplankton or pods and all these kind of base foods to their reef tanks?
Well, yeah, so we basically started growing copepods for hobbyists because they were asking for them. They were looking for live feed organisms that they could feed to finicky fish. And so people with seahorses and pipefish and mandarin dragonettes, that fish that we all know so well, people were asking for live feed organisms. So we decided to start culturing tigger-pods, which is Tigriopus californicus. It's a species of copepod native to the west coast of North America. And so that's one of the biggest reasons why we sell copepods. Is because people are feeding them to fish that need to eat live organisms. And copepods being, a very abundant animals on this planet, and they're part of a lot of different food webs. They are a great source of nutrition for these animals. There's things like fatty acids and carotenoids and all these good things that fish gain when they eat copepods. So adding copepods to a system, an aquarium, with fish that eat live zooplankton organisms and rely on that as their sole or as a major part of their diet. It's good to get copepods into a system for animals like that, for sure. And then as far as the phytoplankton goes, we are a 1.5 million gallon phytoplankton farm in California. It's huge. Yeah, it's like rivers of algae basically. And
seas of green.
We primarily grow algae to sell to people that don't want to grow it, or they can't grow enough, or they can't grow the right species, or there's seasonality issues. There's nothing wrong with growing phytoplankton. A lot of people do it. It's done everywhere, in every big area in the country where they're doing research or feeding fish or feeding live feed organisms. They're growing live algae. And there are millions of species of live algae, but we only work with a handful of them. And the ones that we work with are primarily being used in shellfish aquaculture, people working with shrimp larvae, and also bivalve aquaculture. People are working with bivalve larvae and even feeding phytoplankton to those animals. So it's a big part of their diet, these organisms, clams and oysters and scallops and things that not only are in aquaculture, but are found in the hobby. You can buy clams, whether it's a giant clam or it's a ridgeback clam or flame scallops, oysters, all these organisms that are ornamental to us. And, we put them in our tanks and they have to be fed. And phytoplankton is a huge part of their diet. Bivalves in nature are constantly consuming small particles, and phytoplankton is one of those. And so yeah, that's primarily why people are those are the big reasons why people are feeding phytoplankton, to keep
Hmm.
animals alive that require that kind of nutrition, that kind of particle size, to keep those animals thriving. And so yeah, that's those are two of the big reasons to add
Hmm.
phytoplankton and copepods to your tank.
Now, one thing that a lot of people don't always consider is you adding phytoplankton to your tank's also going to help expand your pod culture in your tank. Because lots of people always want to add more pods as you're feeding phyto and dosing on a regular basis. That phyto is also going to be feeding the pods as well, and it's going to help them kind of reproduce and grow more too. So I always find, at least when I dose it, there's always a lot more noticeable pod population in the tank. So there's definitely, it's kind of the base food which feeds them, which feeds other organisms, and kind of works its way up the chain. Now, actually, another question: how about for filter feeding corals? Because I know some like NPS corals and stuff. I've seen like either rotifers or apex pods or super tiny little pods. Like I've actually seen they can eat those as well, or at
Yeah.
least I fed them those type of things. So
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, for
mm-hmm.
non-photosynthetic corals, and filter feeding organisms like that need to eat, that need to be fed, that don't have zooxanthellae they can rely on for energy. Yeah, things like copepods, rotifers, phytoplankton, those are great for those animals.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing to note is the variety is huge for these
Mm-hmm.
animals. There's not just one species of algae drifting around in the ocean or on
Mm-hmm.
the reef, or in deeper waters. There are multiple species of algae, and so that's why we offer blends of algae in our products. And so like our PhytoFeast has 6 different species of phytoplankton,
Mm-hmm.
because each species of phytoplankton has its own nutritional profile,
Mm-hmm.
and cramming as much nutrition into your animals as possible is only going to benefit them.
Yeah.
And the variety is huge for these organisms, and it's been proven time and time again that
Mm-hmm.
if you have NPS corals, or even corals that do have zooxanthellae, if they're eating and you're feeding them, they grow faster, they do better, they have better color. All of these things, are easy to see when you're feeding these animals. And
Mm-hmm.
some NPS corals, if you don't feed them, they die pretty fast. And so you see somebody with a tank that's got gorgonians and dendronepthia and things that, carnation corals and things that
Mm-hmm.
are going for more than a year or 2 years. They're feeding those animals, there's no doubt.
Yep.
So yeah, it's it's good to offer your animals those kinds of feeds for sure. Yeah.
Yep.
And even
Yep.
SPS corals will eat algae. They will eat algae for sure.
Mm-hmm.
They have mouths for a reason, and they're opportunistic. That's what I always tell people. Corals are incredibly opportunistic. These filter feeders, they don't care if the algae's alive.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole, people feed powdered foods to their corals, and they eat them and grow. And so that's just something to note. A lot of people think that live is better,
Mm-hmm.
and when it comes to opportunistic organisms that are filter feeding, they could care less.
Yep.
If the algae cell is intact and all that nutrition is inside the cell, it doesn't matter whether it's alive or not. They're going to eat it. They're going to gain that nutrition.
So on that note, actually, is there what scenarios would, because I know you guys have a live and I don't know what you want to call it, not live.
Yeah, non-viable, dead.
Non-viable, thank you.
Yeah.
So is there any scenarios where someone would want to pick one over the other?
Well, that's, it's interesting, because there are people that say that live algae is beneficial as far, and not as a food, but as a waste treatment organism per se. You put live algae into a tank, and of course it's going to, take up nitrogenous waste, nitrate.
You beat me to it. I was going to lead into that one next.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so, and also, they take up phosphates, and there are people that claim, I add live algae to my tank every day, and it's clean, and my nitrates and phosphates are very low.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's people that feed tons of live algae to their tank, and they can't get those things down. And so it's interesting. I do believe that if you dose enough live phytoplankton continuously to your tank, it will absolutely soak up those nuisance nutrients that we have. And then, after they've soaked it all up, you got to get them out of there, because what goes in must come out. As soon as that live algae cell soaks up all that nitrogen and phosphorus, and your test kits are showing that, and then an animal eats that algae cell, all the waste that it's going to release is inside that cell, and you've got nitrogen and phosphorus and all these things going out into the water column. So it's still in the system. And so you got to get the algae out. Skimmers, you can use skimmers to take algae out.
Mm-hmm.
And some people will use like UV to nuke the algae and then strip it out with a skimmer.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, those are it's interesting. It's all anecdotal. I don't know anybody that's done any serious research on it, and I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how they could, to be honest, because every tank biologically is different. Like water chemistry
Mm-hmm.
might be similar across the board for everybody, but when it comes to the biology, the living things in an aquarium, they can be vastly different. And so it's interesting to talk about, but I would not say, stop doing water changes and get rid of your
Yeah.
skimmer if
Just
you're
dose
feeding
more
live
Phyto.
algae. Yeah, if you're just dosing live algae and you want to clean your tank, don't skip those other things.
Mm-hmm.
Keep up with your maintenance and your husbandry.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as live algae goes as a food source, it doesn't really matter to these animals at all.
Okay.
I know that it does matter to certain copepods that I work with. There are pelagic species. There's a pelagic species of copepod that I work with that does have a problem with algae if it's not alive or not. And so that's an organism that I found that is selective.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Which one is it? Is it a specific one, or is there a bunch?
Yeah, it's the Parvocalenus Cassirostris species that's being used by like biota to do the yellow tangs and those smaller larval fish. So
Yep.
yeah.
So this actually goes into a good one too, with the fish breeding. So I know one of the main drivers, a lot of people start getting into these live kind of microorganisms. If you start to breed fish, maybe you have a clownfish or bangais or some little tiny creatures that have, they have eggs, they have babies are coming, and this is kind of the mad scramble. What do you feed them? What do you do to raise them? So with them, I know actually one of the kits that you have like the rotifer culture kits, one of them actually. Yeah. So people want to do their own. So actually, how those been doing? Speaking of
the rotifer culture systems,
they're pretty cool little kit.
Yeah, they're doing great. We're selling them. We actually have a new filter. This is it's going to replace the T fitting. It's just one of those hang on the back filters that has been modified.
Nice.
And it's got the filter floss component inside that can be taken out and rinsed. And so this is something that we've got some people using right now in rotifer cultures, and they're liking it. And you don't need an airline. You don't need to control aeration. You don't even need air. This just keep this running, and the rotifers can get pumped in through it and live. This is being created by a manufacturer friend of mine. His name is Ben Roman, with Atomic Aquaculture, and we're calling this the RotiClean unit. So these are going to be replacing the T fittings in those buckets. And we're looking forward to not having to manufacture those anymore, because there's a lot of parts and a lot that goes into it. So yeah, rotifer culture.
Huh, very cool. So all you do is take it out and rinse your sponge every other day or every day or so, and that's it?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Nice. I like it. Make it easier and easier.
Absolutely. So
perfect. Okay, so now one of the big things, because I culture pods on the side too. I mean, I use your product as well as I culture them for fun. And one of the biggest things is to keep them going alive is feeding them Phyto. So you definitely need a good source of Phyto. With the pods, I don't know. I've just fed them random Phyto. I haven't paid attention to live or not live. But so far, most seem to work, at least with a couple that I've tried. If someone is trying to culture pods, is there any tips for them to kind of keep their own little culture going to feed their tank?
Yeah, absolutely. So you want to have a culture that something a lot of people will do 10-gallon tanks, or they'll do like a 5-gallon bucket culture. And what I always recommend is that at least with like Tigriopus, the tigger-pods, they don't really mind what the temperature is, and aeration can be very low. But as far as like the apex pods go, they'll breed and reproduce in like the 70s and 80s. But once you get lower than the 70s, reproduction just starts to slow down. So one other thing that I recommend that people have over their culture is a light, is just a regular old shop light, or even a cheap LED that's used in refugiums or something, and keep a light on there. And the reason why is that it promotes algae growth. You'll get diatoms and blue-green algae and other species of algae that just, are these things that we call nuisance species of algae. They'll grow in this culture, and they will help create, somewhat of an ecosystem. And they'll also provide food for the copepods to eat in between feedings. So, if you're feeding them once or twice a day with your phytoplankton culture or a non-viable source, they have something to munch on in between feedings. It's the same thing goes with reef tanks. Like copepods and reef tanks have, there's algae in reef tanks, there's organic waste, there's things that are rotting that they can eat. in between supplemental feedings, in between you adding phytoplankton feedings.
Okay.
Another thing to note is that Tigriopus californicus, tigger-pods, and apex pods, the Apocyclops panamensis, both can tolerate pretty poor water quality conditions. This isn't like a coral that needs super pristine water.
Yep.
These are basically bugs. I mean, they're related to insects, and so I found over the years that they can tolerate high ammonia, high nitrate, low oxygen, all these things. So one of the things that I always tell people is don't keep the culture super clean. It's just not necessary. You can let waste build up. We call it mulm, and you can build up on the bottom of the system.
Doesn't matter.
And as long as it doesn't go anaerobic, as long as you don't get too much of an anaerobic layer underneath that organic waste, things go very, very well. And one thing I like to also recommend is that people add bacteria, to their cultures. Beneficial bacteria, like we use Microbacter 7, the Brightwell Aquatics product.
Never considered that.
There are multiple species of bacteria in that product. Ones that break down organic waste, ones that are nitrifying bacteria, and so you get all these bacteria in your culture initially, early on. And you can create more of an equilibrium in the system. You don't have bacteria that are battling out while you're trying to culture copepods at the same time. Because bacteria are important to the system. They help to break down the organics. They help to keep things, suspended and stirred up. And copepods will also eat the bacteria, and the bacteria help to break things down and kind of, they're like a primary digester of things. And then the copepods come in later and finish off what the bacteria have already broken down. So yeah, those are some things definitely that to think about when you're culturing copepods. The other thing is also to keep multiple cultures going. You never just want to have one culture of anything going, because things called crashes do happen where cultures, whatever goes wrong, it might be an accident. You might accidentally dump your whole cup of coffee in your culture and nuke the
Has it happened? Has it happened?
I have done it.
Figured so.
Or you accidentally splash bleach in it or something. Things, crazy things go wrong in this hobby. So multiple cultures is definitely huge. And then as far as cultures go, it's good to harvest them. Not too much. You want to create a balance. You don't want to strip too many adults out and they're not reproducing. And it's also good to understand the life cycle of these animals and how long it takes them to become reproductively active, and how long they live after that, and how long they can reproduce after that. And so, like Apocyclops nauplii, it takes them about 14 to 18 days to sexually mature. Tigriopus can take over a month. And it depends on the temperature and feeding and certain things. There's always variables that affect these things.
So over harvesting could potentially take out all your viable reproduction. So that's one big thing to consider.
Yep.
Okay.
And one thing that we do in copepod aquaculture is we tend to filter out the nauplii with passive harvesters. So we strip out the larvae with these passive harvesters. The adults stay in the tank. The babies are stripped out, and then what you can do to those babies is you can either feed them to whatever organism you're working with, your corals, and take a portion of them and use them as your next brood stock. And so you keep the cultures going that way.
Okay.
That's one technique. And then another thing to do is microscope. Get yourself a microscope. There's cheap microscopes out there, and I'm getting a call. Sorry about that. And I always tell people it's really cool to just get them under the scope and get to know them better, because they're really hard to see.
It's true. I just got the little USB one that I use and does the job.
Nice.
Not quite as good as your amazing photos. If you guys saw the thumbnails, they're obviously blown up like 1,000 times, but those are some of Chad's microscope photos of them, which are pretty cool to see.
Yeah. And all you need is like 4x magnification. 10x is good too. Nothing super fancy, nothing amazing.
Okay, I'm gonna throw mine under the microscope later. It's been a while. It'll be fun.
Nice.
Okay, so someone else was asking, question on the copepods. Have them in room temperature or put them in the tank to match the water temperature? Does it make a difference? Does it shock them temperature-wise? If someone, buys a bottle and they go to feed it to the tank, should it be tank temp first, or is it?
From what I found with Tigriopus is that they are really durable when it comes to shock. I have put them in near freezing salt water, from 80-degree water, and it does shock them. I mean, they stop
Mm-hmm.
moving. They sink right to the bottom. But once that water warms up,
Mm-hmm.
they're active. They're even active at lower temperatures like 4 degrees, 9 degrees Celsius.
Mm-hmm.
They're even active at those lower temperatures. But a big shock like that, they totally handle it.
Okay.
I have never seen mass mortalities when doing that.
Okay.
Apocyclops, the apex pods might be, I think they're a little bit more delicate when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to that kind of thing. And as far as salinity, so yeah, temperature shock. If the bottle's really cold when you get it in, just let it sit at room temperature with the cap popped open for an hour or so, and
Okay.
then dump them in just to be safe. But
Mm-hmm.
typically they don't get shocked by temperature like higher or larger organisms do.
Mm-hmm.
And the same goes for salinity.
Okay. No, perfect. That's actually the other question. Does salinity make a big difference in culturing pods? Like, do they have ideal ones, or they're pretty darn flexible?
So there are ideal salinities. I tend to run my Tigriopus around 30 parts per thousand, so low, below average oceanic salinity. And then the apex pods, the apocyclops, they're an amazing copepod. They're found from like Brazil to the Carolinas and the Everglades, all throughout the Caribbean. And they're in saltwater, brackish, and fresh. This species.
Mm-hmm.
They're incredibly they've adapted and evolved into these different aquatic environments, and they're mainly a coastal animal, very
Mm-hmm.
durable. And so, with that being said, what was the question again? I forget what we were talking about.
Around salinity.
Oh,
And if
salinity.
it,
So
yep.
so yeah, these guys, as far as optimal salinity goes, I've found that I can just run them at 30 as well. I've ran
Mm-hmm.
them as low as 15 parts per thousand,
Mm-hmm.
and that was, I saw a huge decrease in reproduction and
Okay.
observed slower, more sluggish copepods. So the ones that I have are probably mostly brackish and saltwater. They're not the freshwater variety, but there are freshwater varieties in this species. So
Okay. No, that works. So overall, pretty hardy little buggers. Universal.
absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
we wouldn't work with them if they weren't. I
No.
can assure you that. Same with the rotifers. Rotifers are incredibly durable.
Mm-hmm.
They can go from 4 parts per thousand to 40, no
Yeah.
problem.
Okay. Okay. So another question in the chat. Do you recommend mixing pods, or does one eventually outcompete the other?
So I don't recommend mixing pods when you're culturing them,
Mm-hmm.
because of reproductive rates and the size. Tigriopus are they're like 3 times the size as apocyclops, and copepods do cannibalize their young. They are known to do that. Even the calanoid
Mm-hmm.
species, the pelagic species, if they can get their antennae on a young copepod, they will eat it. That's for
Mm-hmm.
sure. And so the whole idea is to have enough habitat and food to kind of mitigate those things. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to culture them together. And I say that because in these cultures, you don't really need habitat to culture these copepods. Some
Mm-hmm.
people will put macroalgae. They'll do chetomorpha, which is
Mm-hmm.
fine. That's a very hardy macroalgae, and if you got a light over the culture, that'll provide some habitat. They'll also eat bacteria and epiphytic algae that grows on that.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, yeah, if they're in a culture, keep them separate. In a reef
Mm-hmm.
tank, you've got all that habitat, you've got all that structure. They can
Doesn't.
coexist.
Yeah.
Amphipods can live with isopods, and
Mm-hmm.
isopods are tiny, like the munid isopods that we commonly see. And amphipods are just like these monster Godzilla creatures to them. And
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people with tanks where these animals are coexisting. Of
Yep.
course, you do have to keep in mind, everybody, that pods come and go. Their populations ebb and flow. It is,
Mm-hmm.
and it's competition, it's predation. These are
Mm-hmm.
live feed organisms after all. They're being eaten by things.
Yep.
And so yeah, that's what I would
Yep.
recommend.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, especially if like wrasses and all types of little fish, they're constantly hunting them all day, every day, and the pod population is also going to kind of flow with how much food source, like phytoplankton and other types of nutrients you're adding to your water for them to actually eat. Now, actually, question that for you now: is there an advantage to having like putting Chaeto and stuff like that inside of your cultures versus just a container?
The only advantage of putting chetomorpha in a culture is that you're providing more surface area for them
Mm-hmm.
to live on, and chetomorpha, since it's a living thing, and you get bacteria and things that live on it,
Mm-hmm.
and even algae will grow on it. It just provides another substrate for the
Okay.
copepods to kind of get their food source from. And chetomorpha, these macroalgae, they do process nutrients, and So it's, they could be good for the culture in that aspect. They're taking up nitrogen and,
Mhm.
producing oxygen, things like that. So,
I might try it. I'm
yeah.
curious now. Yeah, why not? What kind of rotifers do you use to try and breed clownfish? So if someone is breeding fish, I mean, probably depends on the type of fish, but clownfish are fairly common. So
Yeah.
what would be the ideal path for someone to try and raise those little babies there? Like, what would be the best food sources?
Yeah, so this is a good topic. As far as rotifers go, we sell a rotifer called the L-type rotifer, large type rotifer, and its species is Brachionis plicatillus. And this is the one that's common in clownfish aquaculture. And this is specifically people working with Ocellaris and
Mm-hmm.
Percula, and even some of the larger ones like Clark eye, the Clark's clownfish, and Melanopus. These larger tomato clowns, these larger ones.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, as far as clownfish aquaculture goes, rotifers are one of the primary live feeds being used. They
Mm-hmm.
are perfectly acceptable to clownfish larvae. And if anybody out there is listening that wants to start working with clownfish and breeding them, if you've got them
Mm-hmm.
breeding and you want to raise the larvae, I highly recommend you get good at culturing rotifers first. It's something that when the larvae are ready to eat and you have a culture that's reliable and ready to go, then you will succeed.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know what you're doing and you don't have a rotifer culture going, or it crashes right before your larvae hatch, then you're not going to raise anything. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a good idea to get very good at rotifer culture, learn as much as you can about them,
Yep.
and we provide systems and tech support and things like that for people to work with these animals. Um, but if somebody wanted to incorporate copepods into the larva culture of clownfish, that's a great thing too. I mean, even if you're feeding a copepod for the first 2 days to that larval fish,
Mm-hmm.
it's immense. The nutrition that marine larval fish gain from copepods is just, it's vastly superior to the rotifer.
Mm-hmm.
Rotifers are this kind of just jelly sack that you have to fill full of good things to make them worth anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we feed them multiple species of algae. People
Yep.
enrich their rotifers with
Mm-hmm.
high lipid emulsions, and to make that rotifer incredibly valuable. When it comes to copepods, they already have the value. They've coexisted with these organisms, and so yeah, copepods are a great source
Okay.
for larval fish.
So apex pods are pretty tiny. Could they substitute for a rotifer, or do you still need rotifers for that initial few days of?
They could totally substitute a rotifer if you are good at culturing them. And
Okay.
that's the thing is you got to be
Mm-hmm.
good at culturing these organisms before you even take this, before you dream about taking this on. Now, one thing
Mm-hmm.
I must mention is that the diets that are out there for clownfish breeders are pretty amazing nowadays. People are
Mm-hmm.
incorporating our dry feed, our TDO, and there's other feeds that are being used, like frozen foods, things like that. People are even making their own diets. So the broodstock fish nowadays are being fed better than they've ever
Mm-hmm.
been fed before. So what that means is they have very robust larvae. These larvae are coming out. They have they have a lot of energy. They're very big. They have a good food reserve in the yolk sac while they're, before they start feeding. And so what some people have found is that you can hatch brine shrimp
Mm-hmm.
and feed them to larval clownfish.
Hmm.
And this is something that, can be done.
Yep.
The only problem with it is that you have to hatch the brine shrimp every single day,
Mm-hmm.
because as a lot of us know, as brine shrimp progress through their different life stages, they begin to lose enrichment value.
Yeah.
And so a newly hatched brine shrimp has very good enrichment value. It's got very good nutritional value.
Mm-hmm.
And so when a clownfish larvae eats that, there's enough nutrition there for that fish to grow and get to its metamorphosis. And so there are people that are doing this, and they're skipping rotifers. They're hatching brine shrimp every day, feeding them to their larval clownfish, and then using the weaning diets,
Mm-hmm.
like TDO, the powdered foods, to get them off of live feeds. So that is an alternative. If somebody is like, I only want to do this once, and I want it to be simple, hatch some brine shrimp. And if you can find, the right amount of brine shrimp, you don't have to buy a 450 gram container.
Mm-hmm.
You can find vials or people that decapsulate them for you, and they're easy to hatch and they're clean.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's an option for people that aren't doing this long term, because to do it long term is a real pain in the butt. That's why a lot of fish hatcheries don't hatch Artemia every single day for this, because it's a whole thing that you have to do.
Mm-hmm. No, it definitely is, and I tried that for a while when I had jellyfish for a couple of years, and same thing as hatching the brine shrimp all the time. But well, actually, one trick I learned: if you suck them out right when they hatch, and you can throw them in a little container in the fridge, it slows down metabolism, and it kind of keeps them more nutritious for a few days rather than hatching them every single day. You can hatch it every 3 or 4 days, which a little bit less work, but still definitely up there. Mm-hmm. But no, good to know apex pods could be a good substitute because they're less work than rotifers. Because rotifers, you got to keep splitting it all the time and make sure it doesn't overload it. Now, okay.
The only problem with that is that rotifers' reproduction is vastly superior to copepods, and so you can grow more rotifers in higher densities faster than you can with copepods.
Okay, no, that makes sense. Okay, now a few people have been asking about your awesome new little filter for culturing rotifers. Is that available yet, or when will it be if it's not?
So this is it here, and we're our manufacturer Ben, a very good friend of mine. He's in Texas. He's continuing to build these for us, and we've got him making 100 units. And we are, as soon as we get all the units in, we're gonna try to create a how-to video like we did with our compact culture system, and then we're gonna start selling them.
Awesome. Nope, perfect. That'll be good. And then
the cool thing about this filter is you only need to buy the filter, and you'll have it for a long time. And we will have replacement pumps and, in the floss and things like that. So we're hopefully going to make these available very soon, within a month or so. But, this pandemic has created some interesting bottlenecks for us, and our focus is being pulled, our attention is being pulled in different areas. So don't hold me to that.
All right. So in the works, hopefully in the near future, depending on the lovely flow of life. Okay. No, that's fair. Okay. Awesome. Now, a couple other people are asking is it hard to, or is it easy to start culturing? It is fairly easy. I mean, Chad, I've obviously used all your products from start my cultures. Every once in a while, if one dies, I'm like, oh, go to the store, buy another bottle of ReefNutrition, restart them, and start them going again. So 100% does work, and I do appreciate that because it's really easy to get it going once you do it. But like you said earlier, they can crash. I mean, I find Phyto harder than pods because Phyto's easier to get contaminated and crash on you. So again, if you are doing that, you do want to have multiple cultures going, or if you don't want to deal with it, then you could just buy Phyto and just feed it to them.
Right. Yep. And I want to add to that, because at no time in history has there been so many suppliers of phytoplankton and copepods and rotifers. And so people in the middle of nowhere, Iowa or in the middle of Canada, can breed fish, and they can culture these live feed organisms. They don't have to go all the way to the ocean and sieve out some, plankton and feed it to their larval fish. Those, and so it's accelerated aquaculture. It's accelerated the whole thing. That's why you're seeing so many species first. You're seeing people in basements in Missouri raising, flame angels, and public aquariums are now getting very good at it. And there's this need for live feed specialists. And so it's amazing. These are amazing times. And it's all because of producers of these things making them available in clean single species cultures. So it's great. Hobbyists have a lot more access now. So
huge. Just even the last, I'm gonna say 3 or 4 years, it's just every year there seems more and more different new species capture bred, which is awesome to see, right? So
yeah, totally. Yellow tangs. All I gotta say is yellow tangs, man.
Yeah. Oh, huge.
Yeah.
See, make it all happen, buddy. All starts with those base little tiny copepods. A couple of people asking where can they get pods, where to get your products. So you guys ship direct right now, right? Off your site?
So we have always shipped direct.
Yep.
But we always prefer that you support your local fish store. We are in a lot of stores across the U.S. and in Canada. Not as many in Canada, obviously, only near bigger cities. But that's those are the 2 ways that you can buy our products. We try to make it easy to find us in accessibility. And not every store carries our products. Not every store carries and sells phytoplankton in pods. And so there are hobbyists across the continent that, would like to have access to these products. And so that's why we sell direct to consumer.
Nope. Awesome.
And right now we're running a free shipping promo. So, it's
Sweet.
the promo code is stay home. And if you go to our ReefNutrition website, it's at the very top of the page. Just click on it and get started. And you can add other products and still get free shipping. We're trying to be as helpful as we possibly can during all of this craziness.
That's awesome. No, that's really cool. So there you go. You guys can get started playing with culturing, feed your tanks, breed some fish, don't have to leave the house. No, it's pretty awesome. Okay, a question from earlier from Derek was asking, how does he get 100,000 pods? I've not said so
People
many
are
times.
always asking that. They're like, "Did you count every single one of them?" Or they get mad. They're like, "Oh, that's a bunch of hogwash."
That was only 950,000. What the?
So what we do in aquaculture is we take a subsample. So let's say I have a liter of water and I've got pods in there. What I do is I drop an airline in that liter of water to keep all of the pods homogenized. That way they're evenly spread out in that volume of water. Then I take a 1 milliliter sample, put it under a slide. I fix them with vinegar, just regular old household vinegar, because it's impossible to count them when they're swimming around. They practically go through time warps.
Yeah,
they're so fast. And so I take that entire count. I count everybody in that 1 milliliter, and then I multiply it times 1,000 because that's how many total milliliters were in my container. And so that's how I quantify my copepods.
Yeah.
And usually what I do is I add 20% extra, because of user error. I try to do 3 counts and then average them out.
Okay.
And so that's how we do the apocyclops. The tigger-pods, we do them by weight. We have this calculation that we did a long time ago where we counted out a certain amount. We took a gram and we counted them all. We did this multiple times and then we figured out how many were in a gram. And then from there we could, adjust for depending on how many bottles we're making.
Yeah. Nice. No, pretty cool. Fellow Reefer, 49 Super Chat, thank you. Hello, looking forward to using your products once I set up my upgrade. Very nice. And
right
thank
on,
you.
fellow Reefer.
Yep. Fellow Reefer. A couple other people are asking about shipping to Canada or shipping to the UK.
So we are currently not shipping to the UK. We do have a couple of distributors. We have one in the UK and then one in Europe, in France, but they only carry our Phyto Feast, our non-viable Phyto Feast currently.
Okay.
And so for people in the UK and in Europe, we are working on it. We're working very hard to bring our products to you. We have had a lot of requests over the years, and they seem to be there's more and more. But as far as Canada goes, yes, we do ship to Canada. You just have to, stay in communication with your customs people, the border people, and, just stay on top of them, because sometimes the box just sits there for days and nobody does anything. They don't know what to do with it. And, you know what this is like.
Yep, been there.
and so, as far as shipping to Canada, that can be a little bit tricky. And that's why we prefer, if you have a store near you, to go to your store, because we ship, a bunch of boxes to Reef Wholesale, to Patrick and Trina, and they distribute to our stores in Canada. So, there's a couple of methods. So we can work with you if you want to buy direct. It's just, it's more expensive, and it's a little bit more tricky when it comes to getting it through the border and getting it through customs.
Yep. Nope. Definitely. All right. So Derek wants to know, how does he buy 100,000 Copepods?
So right now we're only selling the Apocyclops panamensis nauplii, the larval copepods, in quantities of 100,000.
Okay.
We're not selling the adults in those quantities right now. I am giving them to people that have done things for us in the past, and those that are helping to spread the word. and so we do that every now and then. We do it for public aquariums because they really need them, but we're a little bit wary of selling 100,000 adults to people, because they could just take and bottle them up and sell them themselves.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
And you can make a lot of money off of 100,000 pods if you're putting 2,000 in a bottle and sell them for $25.
Yeah,
really fast.
No, that's fair. That makes sense.
So there's there are nefarious people out there, and we just we want to avoid that, and we try to vet our customers when it comes to selling bulk copepods.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because we've been burned before.
Sneaky.
Yeah. So
yeah.
we actually make people sign a contract that say they're not gonna resell them.
Yep. No, that's good.
Yeah.
See that tank, make her happy.
Yeah. Just keep it simple. Yep. If you want to grow pods, just get a small bottle and grow your own.
Super easy. Yeah. I mean, really, you should. I've done it for years just for fun. I mean, why not, right? It's easy to do, especially like I've had mandarins and stuff in small tanks. You just give them little doses of food all the time.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. But for the primary customer that buys like the 100,000 quantities, those are people in aquaculture. People that are feeding them to larval fish or jellies or other invertebrates. So
I've never actually tried culturing fish, or sorry, like breeding fish, but I think I'm gonna try the bang guys one of these days because I've seen them have eggs so many times.
Oh, they're a lovely fish to work with. I love that. Yeah, no metamorphosis. They come
Mm-hmm.
out little tiny versions of an
Just
adult.
miniature little
They're
ones.
so amazing.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Yeah.
so for that, if I do end up successfully getting a brood stock or actually getting some babies out of it, what would be the best kind of food for source for them for Banggai cardinals babies?
I know that there are people that have been able, Chad Vossen with Vossen Aquatics, he's been able
Mm-hmm.
to get them to eat TDO
Oh,
right off
really?
the bat. As
Nice.
long as he kept the TDO moving and it kind
Mm-hmm.
of, got them to see it, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and, kind of think it's alive, but it's
Yep.
not, but it's nutritious enough and nutrient
Mm-hmm.
dense enough that when they eat it, they are like, oh yeah, this is food. And then they keep eating it. And then from there, you've got them. But what
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people typically do is they'll use newly hatched brine shrimp to
Mm-hmm.
feed to newly birthed banguys.
Yep.
And you could also feed them adult copepods. They will
Okay.
gladly gobble up adult copepods all day long.
Perfect. All right, that's gonna be the first project of trying to successfully breed them. They sound easier to feed. I like it.
Yeah, and
Yep.
like our Tigger feast would be a great product to use for people. If you get them on a live feed,
Mm-hmm.
Tigger pods, live feed copepods, and then you want to get them onto a dead copepod. Our
Yep.
Tigger feast are basically 54 bottles of Tigger pods in one bottle.
Wow.
And so it's an
Nice.
immensely dense copepod product that's incredibly unique. Nobody else in the world does
That's
anything
awesome.
like this because the copepods that the dense copepod products that people offer are harvested from the ocean.
Yep.
And so it's something that unique that we do because we farm them. We're a huge operation. We overproduce them, so we freeze them and then make
Mm-hmm.
Tigger feast. So that's another good one to offer to Mangai cardinals.
Awesome. No, perfect. That'll be a good one. I don't even know if I've seen Tigger Feast. I'll have to check that out later. There's a question. What's the best reef nutrition food for jellies? For jellyfish?
For jellies, so for moon jellies, which is I think those are the most common jelly you would find in the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
They eat our fish eggs. They eat our roe. So those are
Mm-hmm.
cod and pollock eggs.
Mm-hmm.
They also eat the Tigger feast, the
Mm-hmm.
dead tigers. They eat the roti feast, the rotifers, and you can also feed them TDO, the size B1 or B2,
Mm-hmm.
which are in between like a powder and a granule
Okay.
kind of size.
Nice.
And when it comes to jellies, feed them teeny tiny amounts
Mm-hmm.
multiple times a day and keep them clean. There are some amazing jelly experts out there.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned so much over the years. So yeah, read about them
Yep. No,
because it's commitment.
it is. It's lots of work, but it is pretty cool.
Yeah, way cool. It's like a living lava lamp.
Yep, it really is. I had a tank on my desk for like a year and a half probably, and yeah, it was awesome. But I had little hatchery, everything right on my desk. As I'm like,
Yeah.
it takes like 30 seconds to like do it as I'm just like going through my day. So it wasn't a big deal because it's beside me all day. But yeah, super cool.
Yeah, talk about lowering your blood pressure. Just sit there and watch one of those things.
Yeah, relaxing in those stressful days.
Whew, crazy. Yeah, cool
Yep.
stuff. I'm glad that people have their reef tanks. I'm glad hobbyists have these boxes of water in their houses to
Mm-hmm.
keep them entertained and relaxed during this crazy stuff. It's really cool, and I'm glad that we're still able to ship, and people still have power and internet and Netflix and all of it. So it's really great.
I don't know. I think the reef tanks so it keeps everyone sane through all this, so they're cooped up, right?
Totally. Yeah. And
Uh,
I saw somebody joke about it. They're like, they posted a picture of a reef tank that was super dirty and hadn't been cleaned, and a clean one, and they're like, yeah, everybody's reef tanks are going to look super amazing after this, whole
Mhm.
thing, because we're trapped inside. What better to do than to tend to your reef tank?
Sadly, I have had less time for my tank lately because I've been so crazy busy. But
Yeah,
I know. Hopefully soon. This will be good. So,
gotcha.
what? Any other cool new stuff coming in the pipe from Reef Nutrition? Any other projects? Anything that's not top secret that's fun to share?
So the only big project that we're working on right now is our website.
Mhm.
We are redoing our entire website. We're offering new ways to buy products. So we have the shop by product function on our website right now. We're doing a shop by tank type, which is we're tank types like Fowler tanks or fish only with no live rock,
Yep.
or mixed reef, SPS, NPS, soft reef tank. So we're creating these different tank types, and then we're having products that are applicable for those tank types. And
that's
so
cool.
we're going to make it better for the more uninformed hobbyists to come on our website, make it easier to find out which products are meant for them, instead of having them to call us and us saying, okay, so what type of tank do you have, what animals do you have. We're going to kind of skip that part and give them more information. Then we're also doing shop by animal. And so you can go to the Mandarin page and find out what we recommend for mandarins. And we also have, like a picture of a mandarin dragonet, and then a little bitty, like information paragraph about
Mm-hmm.
them. Maybe their biology, maybe where they're found in the world, how to tend for them, how, care level,
Mm-hmm.
feeding them live pods. You can wean them onto, or you can feed them dry feeds and dead things, but to be careful to always make sure to have live pods for them, stuff like that. And, and
Mm-hmm.
same for clownfish, what's applicable for clownfish, angelfish, all these things. So shop by animal, something
That's
doing.
really cool. That'll be awesome.
We're also getting ready to do something we've never done before, and that's offer free shipping above a certain price. So you buy $60 worth of product for example, and you get free shipping.
Nice.
And we're also looking to do subscriptions, so that people don't have to don't have to remember to get their pod order, if they're adding pods every week or every month.
Nice.
And we're also going to make it so that when you check out, you can tag your favorite local fish store, and we will give them points and offer that store credit.
That's cool. Nice.
so that the stores, get something out of it. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to pull all of our customers away from their local fish store because they've got free shipping. And it's interesting because I found a lot of people that have good local fish stores, they're very loyal to the stores. Even if we have free shipping, they're still going to the store and buying our products. Because after all that, that's, they don't have to pay for shipping with that either. And so it's good to support your local fish store. And we have built-in incentives for our dealers as well. A lot of our stores know about these incentives. And so yeah, that's the website is huge. It's we're working with Shopify. It's gonna be a whole different shopping cart experience for people, more education. And that's, we've been working on that for almost a year now. It's nice. A lot of information that we're working on. So yeah. And then, no shows this year, so
crazy. It's weird.
So, well, not yet, at least, I guess. The only one I know that's postponed is Reef Smart in North Carolina in December. But yeah, now I've got all this other time to to continue to work on the website and also do some experimentation on my Copepods.
What kind of experiments?
What kind of experiments?
What are these pod experiments?
I'm looking to experiment with different algae, different kinds of algae, and see how they react to like feeding them nothing but Nanochloropsis, or see how they react to feeding them nothing but Isochrysis. And these are all, this is all dead algae. This is all stuff I'm dosing out of a refrigerator. Nice. And so those are little experiments I'm trying to figure out. How can I be better at this? I'm always trying to be better at it. That's what live feeds people are always doing. And so yeah, that's what's happening right now, and we're trying to keep up with the demand for TDO. It was it got a very good review on Bulk Reef Supply for last year, and we were pretty thrilled about that. Even considering it had only been on Bulk Reef Supply for like 9 months, and in a very competitive pellet food market, we're very proud of it. So we'd be more proud if the Canadian government would let us get it in.
I know. What's with that?
Dang it!
I know. It's trickier to get fish food.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's funny because we're working on our end, and there's people in Canada that are working even harder to get TDO in, and otohime, the base, the pelleted food that we use to top dress, because there's fish farmers in Canada that are working with, like walleye, pike perch, and other fishes, and they do very well on otohime. So.
Well, on that note, TDO is pretty awesome. How, like, everything seems to just go for it and eat it. Like, it's a pretty popular item on the fish palette.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, I mean, after all, it was designed to work in fish hatcheries and get fish to eat it that were eating live feed organisms. So there's got to be a something delicious smelling about it, and palatable and nutritive and easy to digest. All those things are hugely important. So
that's pretty awesome. Okay, there was a question a few minutes ago that I forgot to ask, but they're asking about the expiry data on them on some of the refrigerated products. Is it like, how hard of a line is it, or if it's like a bit expired, is it a big deal?
Right.
Kind of thing.
So yeah, this is something we're working on the website too, is to make this more clear. We're calling it a best buy date, and we're not going to call it an expiration date anymore. Yeah. Because on that date, it doesn't suddenly just spoil instantly, and you have to throw it away. The same goes for human food. There's some foods that go past expiration. You can eat them and they're fine. You do that old smell test. Yeah. Like people do with their milk. And so, yeah, we always tell people to get to know the product when you get it in, give it a good sniff.
Get to know
a
it.
little whiff, with it.
Lovely aromas of Copepod.
Yeah. Cause algae has a very unique odor.
Hmm.
It's not repulsive to most, but when algae, because we pack a lot of biomass in our products,
Hmm.
there's a lot of algae in our products. And so when that product goes bad, you know it.
Yeah.
There's no mistaking it. It's like going, it's like rotting vegetation and organic waste. If you've ever been to the ocean at low tide on a
Yep.
hot day and you take in that stench,
That's the one.
that's what we're talking about. And so, like, what we've recently done is we've expanded our best buy dates. So
Hmm.
our what is it? I have it written here. So our Phyto Feast concentrate went from 5 months to 9 months.
Oh, nice.
Same with Oyster Feast,
Yep.
Rhodey Feast, Roe.
Hmm.
Tigger Feast is already good for a year. The Phyto Feast Live has a viability window of 3 months. So the algae is
Nice.
alive for about 3 months.
Hmm.
And then after that, it just stops replicating itself, but it doesn't just suddenly all start rotting and die.
Yeah, still
So you
good.
can
Still feed
continue
it.
to use it. Yeah, because like I said before, the animals could care less if it's alive or dead.
Hmm.
They're opportunistic.
Yep.
There's things that eat marine snow, and that's just organic waste with bacteria all over it.
Hmm.
So we've lengthened our best buy dates, which is going to be huge for people with very small tanks. People with 30 gallons or
Hmm.
less can make that phytoplankton or that other product go even further,
Nice.
and not have to worry about wasting the money. Even though a 6-ounce bottle of Phyto Feast, the minimum price is only just under $10, which is
Hmm.
amazing for a product that's 20 times as concentrated as any other product on the market. And anybody
Yep.
listening in right now can do their own comparison. I encourage it.
No.
And that's what we bring to the plate. A lot of biomass,
Hmm.
not as much money.
No, hands down. I know just even the amount of pods you put in a bottle compared to all the other ones I've seen, you just pack them full, which is amazing.
Yep.
So,
And we've always done that. And
hmm
that's just our thing is to give people more for their money.
hmm Exactly. So a couple people are asking the code for free shipping. Stay at home.
It's stay home.
Stay home. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
And there's 3 kits that we've designed. We've designed
Mhm.
a kit called the Grateful Live kit.
Yeah.
Making fun of the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
So it's live it's tigger-pods, apex pods, and Phyto Feast Live.
Nice.
And then we have the Hobbyist Choice, which are
Mhm.
top 3 selling products: Oyster Feast, Phyto Feast Concentrate, the non-live
Mhm.
version, and tigger-pods. And then we have the TDO Value Pack, which is extra small, small, and medium. Of course, people in Canada won't be able. Actually, the promo doesn't work for Canadians. It's only for the contiguous 48
Okay.
states in the U.S.
That's fair. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yep.
And it's running until the end of the month, but we may extend.
Yeah.
So.
Perfect. Well, there you go. So good excuse to stock up. If you can't get your local fish store, got the backup plan. Ready to get your fix. Sorry, I was reading a comment and they're just like completely random. Some of them. They're like, Pringles is packed in nitrogen to prevent oxidation.
Oh, very nice. Yes. How
Good
to
to know.
preserve foods. Yeah.
There you go. Nitrogen for our pods.
I prefer to use refrigeration as a preservative.
That's wise. UK delivery, yeah. So there's some stuff in the UK, not directly for the shipping promotion yet, but you said there was a couple products distributed in the UK, right?
Yeah, our non-viable phytoplankton products are available. Yep.
Okay. Excellent. Perfect. Well, I won't keep you too late, but I appreciate you coming on today. It's good to have you on.
Yeah, it's good to have you too. It's it's interesting times, and we're continuing
Mhm.
to operate and keep people supplied, because the last thing we all want is to watch our tanks die because we can't feed them. So
Nope, exactly.
we're here for you.
Nope, and everyone appreciates it. So spend a little quality time with your tank, and I don't know. I think I don't know. I personally think it's fun culturing stuff. So if you've never done it, go pick up a pack and try it. Like, I don't know, it's a good little learning experience, especially when you want to get into breeding fish or you have mandarins, other stuff, and if it ever crashes, pretty easy to get new stuff because Chad's stuff's awesome, easy to stock her up. So definitely, I don't know, it's a good little project. I think, so people, if you haven't tried live food before, give it a whirl.
Absolutely, and it's super educational. If you're stuck at home with your kids, get a bottle of pods and
Yep.
and grow some pods and learn about the biology. Look them up.
And
A lot of cool
a
things to
microscope, actually, really cool to see up
A
close.
microscope would be super helpful. Yes.
Yep. Awesome.
All right.
Cool. All right, guys. If you guys enjoyed this, as always, hit that thumbs up button. Derek and fellow reefer, thank you guys for the super chat. And Chad, thank you so much for coming on today.
You're welcome. Thank you. And to everybody here, check us out on Facebook and Instagram.
Perfect. And reefnutrition.com.
ReefNutrition.com. Yes, sir.
Instagram at reefnutrition. Easy to find.
Yes. Very easy to find.
Awesome. Okay, thanks so much, guys.
Okay, bye everybody.